myositis. I incorrectly called it melasitis. I don't know why, but myositis. What is myositis? We were talking last time, if you know about metabolic syndrome, Syndrome X, and please check it out. I'll put a link in the description below for you guys to have a look. And we stopped off at autoimmune diseases, and we would like to actually continue that discussion. And so let me right off the bat start with Dr. Chandan Reddy in the house. He topped his.
I didn't top it, but I did. I'm starting my internship now soon. Tomorrow, actually,
Tomorrow you're starting
Yeah.
internship. Right. Okay. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And let me right off the bat start by asking you the question: what is autoimmune disease?
Okay, so autoimmune diseases, you have an immune response in your body, right? Which you get a fever or any type of disease, the immune system will attack it and it'll go away. Now, what happens in autoimmune diseases? It's there in the name itself. Auto means self. Okay, so the immune system starts attacking your own tissues.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is the main basis for autoimmune diseases. So I think many people have heard about rheumatoid arthritis and SLE, IgA nephropathy, etc. Yeah, those are different type of, and type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
Even that is an
also an
autoimmune disease. Yeah.
So it's essentially something like your body has I would say a bunch of soldiers, if I'm going to put it like that, who are defending your body from foreign attack, from foreign invaders. And if your body ends up confusing your own cells and your own tissue in your own body as some kind of a invasive mechanism, as an invader, it's going to attack its own system. That is known as an autoimmune disorder.
Exactly. Yeah.
And these autoimmune disorders seem to be on the rise. Okay, as you guys might be knowing, with Samantha Ruth Prabhu having an autoimmune condition,
Autoimmune myositis. Yeah.
myositis, right? Is it called myositis or something
myositis.
more? Myositis. And then you have Chris Bumstead. For any of the lifters in the audience who follow me, they know Chris Bumstead's got IgA1 nephropathy. We'll shortly be discussing about that as well. But why do you think these things are on the rise? And what do you think is the cause of autoimmune diseases, generally?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Like we talked about metabolic syndrome, there's never one cause. Alright, there's multiple patterns which are causing. So in the case of autoimmune diseases, along with lifestyle and diet, which are they play a small part. Our body, what happens is there's a viral attack. Usually, when you see autoimmune diseases, one of the two main viruses we see is, one is called Epstein-Barr virus, okay, and another one is called cytomegalovirus. So these two viruses, usually people who have autoimmune diseases, when we look back, they were affected with this virus before. So our immune system triggers a response post-virus, after the virus is gone, okay. So this virus triggers the attack and the virus goes away, but the attack is still going on. That's the thing. So it triggers the attack in your body.
So these viruses, how do you get these viruses? From the environment, from pollution? And you have like a genetic response to this particular virus.
Exactly. Some people, it's not like every person who will get these, viral diseases will be affected by it, but it is usually seen. There's a more increased risk.
Right. Okay. Of people who have this sort of a virus, and I think it confuses the immune system into thinking that its own body is the invader, and it starts to attack.
Yeah, and it's not like compulsory. You may get an autoimmune disease post the viral attack. I may not get it. Okay, there's a genetic predisposition too.
There's a genetic predisposition to it in the sense that there's the environment and there's the genome, and the genetics is tuned in such a way that a particular set of genes, maybe, I guess the right word to use is expressed.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Exactly.
They get expressed because of the interaction with the environment.
Yeah.
And that causes the autoimmune condition to kind of like take birth.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Some people may be born with it.
Yeah. Like type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes. Most people who are type 1 diabetic are born with it.
Yeah. It starts off at a very young age. There's not necessarily, you don't need to have a viral attack, to get a type 1 diabetes. Usually it's seen, fairly in a very young age it starts. Yeah.
Okay, because I have a cousin, this is an interesting story, who got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in his 50s.
So that's very rare. Usually
It's the rarest form of type 1 diabetes, in fact. I don't recall what it is. And it was incorrectly diagnosed as type 2. That's how crazy things can get, guys. Yeah.
Because insulin is given primarily the treatment for type 1 is insulin, right?
Insulin,
and then
right.
Instead of that, for type 2 people you give anti glycemic drugs, which reduce the blood glucose level. And so if you give wrong drugs, that's
give
a big
the wrong
problem.
drugs, it's going to be a real problem.
Yeah.
But thankfully nothing happened, and he is a cyclist. So the doctor actually said that because he's a cyclist, once you kind of like cycle and get into some physical activity, you automatically start to kind of have a reason for having better diet, having a better sleep, having a better lifestyle and all.
Yeah.
And that really resulted in the doctor telling him that because you adopted a cycling lifestyle and a physically active lifestyle, your type 1 diabetes actually did not, cause a lot of problems. So that kind of is the importance of, I would say, going out there and working out. Because my nephew's friend is also there, and she's an athlete. She's a long jump athlete, and she's also type 1 diabetic. She's a kid.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, she's a kid. I mean, she wears actually a CGM. She's one of the
As I told you,
like last time, right? Yeah. So coming back to autoimmune diseases, it's basically genetic. It might be because of a virus, is what you say.
Yeah.
And how do we, how do I put it? Are Indians more susceptible to it, or is it like there's nothing like that?
Not necessarily. It's spread worldwide. More than, to say that, Indians or another race is affected, women are more affected in autoimmune diseases. There's a huge disparity. Similarly, how, cancers are seen more in men. Usually we don't know why, maybe lifestyle and health and all that, different kind of things. But similarly like that, autoimmune diseases are seen more in women. There are rare type of autoimmune diseases such as IgA nephropathy, is slightly more in men. But other diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis or SLE. SLE is fairly there's a high risk in women, and rheumatoid arthritis too.
Okay. Why? We'll come to these IgA nephropathy, mellitus. What was it?
Systemic myositis.
Myositis. We'll come to IgA nephropathy, myositis, and all of these diseases very soon. But I just want to know, why is it that women are more affected? Is there an answer? Are there some speculations or evidence for why is it the case? Because what I've seen as a layman is that women are affected because during the childbearing years. Or
that's the thing. Even rheumatoid arthritis, you see, it's affected in middle-aged women. Childbearing age, etc. So it shows that probably there's a hormonal relation to it. And then there's also the thymus gland. The thymus gland is a gland which produces antibodies. It's large in children. And slowly as you age, it starts reducing and shrinking. So there may be a relationship to that too.
In relation to the thymus gland.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thymus gland is responsible for some autoimmune function?
Yeah. There's slight researches that show that there is a link. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I will definitely look that up. So coming to myositis, I incorrectly called it mellitus. I don't know why, but myositis. What is myositis? And we all know that Samantha Ruth Prabhu had myositis, and she was treated for it. So could you just explain more about that?
Yeah, to put it simply, what happens in autoimmune myositis is that the muscle tissue is the one that is being attacked. For example, in rheumatoid arthritis, joints are attacked. In SLE, kidneys, pancreas, liver, etc. are attacked. In each different type of autoimmune diseases, a specific organ is usually affected, and this is the muscle tissue. And so over time, you get the muscles start becoming weaker, and you're not able to do activities properly. There's a lot of fatigue, and there's a characteristic type of rash when you go out in the sun. That is there. Yeah, so mainly the muscle fibers are affected, and they're not able to work properly.
Muscle fibers are affected, okay. But Samantha was like
That's
very.
because she works out.
She works out, like
Yeah.
how did she work out big, like?
She used to work out like very long before she got affected with this disease, I think, you know.
Okay.
When we've seen her, you know, doing deadlifts, and you know, she's a proper.
Yeah, she's a proper.
Yeah, a lifter. So that is the reason she's able to, you know, the stimulus is helping her keep the strength and, you know, not be severely affected, as you usually see in the other myositis patients who don't work out and they're suddenly affected by it, right?
Okay.
They get fairly weaker.
Okay, that's like, okay, that's worrisome. So it starts to essentially, I guess, deteriorate, or what is it called? Atrophy. Does it lead to muscle atrophy?
Yeah, atrophy. Yeah.
It leads to muscle atrophy, right? Not hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting and worrisome. But what's the treatment for it?
There's mainly, you know, immune modulators, and that's a medical part of it, and you know, steroid, not the
injections.
Yeah, no, not that.
Not
the glucocorticoids and different, which help in, you know, suppressing the immune attack on the body. And other than that, obviously, you know, anti-inflammatory foods like vitamin C rich foods and exercise.
Okay, so though that's the kind of holistic package.
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to treating, I guess any, you know, any autoimmune disease. Okay, it's essentially any
mostly
autoimmune disease.
90% of it.
Maybe the drugs would be specific for each one.
Yeah,
But having an active lifestyle, eating a good.
Those are all, you know, new age drugs, so it's, you know, specific for each disease. Usually, the lot of, you know, immune modulators or disease modifying drugs are also used, which
So
help.
it's generally immunosuppressant, I guess. It's somehow it suppresses the immune system so that it doesn't fight its own.
Exactly.
But is that not like a double-edged sword? Because if you suppress the immune system, and I ask this completely as a layman, which is that you suppress the immune system because your immune system is fighting your own infections.
Yeah.
But does that not weaken the immune system from foreign attack?
That's the thing. It only affects the pathway that is affecting the autoimmune disease. Not every single pathway which is there in the body.
Okay, so the drug is developed in such a way that it only targets the pathway that is responsible for the autoimmune condition that is present in that particular patient.
Steroids in general, you know, they affect everything. So, you know, people who take, you know, glucocorticoids for a long period of time and high dose, people who are having the severe disease, they are at risk of getting more infections. You've seen similarly in like COVID time, they started, you know, giving steroids because, you know, it helps in lung maturity, helps in, you know, keeping the lungs healthy. But at the same time, those people were getting affected with black fungus.
Right, yes. COVID times.
Yeah, so there's an increased risk of, you know, getting diseases, especially fungal diseases. That's the thing.
Fungal diseases because of that. And black fungus can be lethal?
Yeah.
Black fungus can be lethal, okay. So now this actually leads me to a more fundamental question where you spoke about a pathway being activated or deactivated, right? This is a bit of a detour, but I would say this is an interesting biology lesson for us to understand, because I was generally not very interested in biology as a kid.
Yeah.
But later on, in terms of like after COVID and after you see debilitating chronic disease around your loved ones, and we've all seen that, I guess all my friends have essentially seen that, where you have your people in old age, your loved ones in old age do that, and then you're kind of like forced to understand a bit of biology, right? You're forced to understand like, what does this drug do to me, right? What does that drug not do to me, right?
Yeah.
And you want to know if your doctor's just like, you know, trying to quickly make a buck off of you and all. So you want to know all of that, which is why I ask, is a drug that you generally take activates a biological pathway or deactivates it? Is that how drugs essentially work?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're right, yeah.
That's how.
So, as I said, steroids are like, you know, it affects the general immune system, but there are new age drugs, you know, those are called disease modifying drugs. Specifically, you know, act on the disease, not entirely the whole body. There are obviously side effects, but not as much as, you know, steroids and other type of, you know, old age drugs. Yeah.
Old age drugs. The old age drugs essentially, they target everything. Okay. So it's like if there's one bad crop in a field, they'll burn the whole field.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. These ones are more targeted.
Yeah.
So okay, one fundamental question I'd like to ask you before moving on to IgA1 nephropathy, which Chris Bumstead has or had, which is, what is a biological pathway?
Okay, a simple biological pathway is, you know, how do we put it? You get a disease, okay, and then it sends a response to your nervous system, and that activates the hormones, and which help in, how do I put it, release antibodies. Okay, so each disease or each microbe, it has a specific HLA or antigens which are attached to it. Okay, now what this antibodies do is they take up those and they attack the antigens, which also in case the whole pathogen, it just destroys the pathogen completely, the antibodies. So it's specifically targeted to that antigen. That's the thing.
Okay, so from a structural perspective, are pathways something like, here is my imagination and I may be wrong, like how the structure of an atom is like an atom, and then you have like nucleus inside, and then you have like electrons moving around. That's wrong. That's not the right picture. I know more physics than I know biology, so that I understand that is wrong. But when I think about pathways, I think about trees. And I'll tell you why I think about trees. So biological pathways are something like you have branches, and then you have a branching pattern. Like if you look at the tree outside, you guys probably can't see it, but there's a tree outside, and there are these branching pathways, right? And then there's like kind of like a repeating pattern, or repeating. It's called a fractal pattern, right? Because you have a branch, like a big branch, and then you have like things branching out, and each branch has like a sub branch, and then you have a leaf, and the leaf also has like small. So it's repeating a different way. Is that how pathways are? Is how I imagine?
No, not exactly. It's a more it's more widespread completely than than a single like a tree. It's not like that. It's like completely
But it's like a network on which things.
It's a network. Yeah, you can say it's a web.
It's a web, right? And then you have like proteins and lipids. I don't know, all these various biological molecules, if I can be general, that kind of like move on this and do these functions inside the human body. That's kind of like the layman's picture, semi-layman's picture that one can essentially have. Okay, very, very interesting, and it shows that kind of like the relevance of biology to a person's life, right?
So that's the thing. Even like to simply put it, there's a reason why HIV you can't treat it because of it has a DNA which keeps changing.
It's a DNA which keeps changing.
It keeps changing. That's the reason your body is not able to attack it properly, because every time it attacks, it keeps changing.
So every drug is like essentially trying to target a particular weed in a field. You can put it that way. But this time, this is like one of those mole rats or some game where it's like it goes down and it pops its head up here, goes down and pops its head up here. So the weed goes down and it pops there, it's here and here, and it's kind of like always shape-shifting and you don't know where to target.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And you can't even predict where it will kind of like, how it will change.
Yeah, it depends person to person again.
Wow, okay. Sounds like a math problem, but I don't know. I like to, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Since I know math, I'm like everything looks like a math problem to me, but I may be wrong. So let's get to the lifting aspect of it. And by lifting aspect, I mean let's get to Chris Bumstead, who suffered from IgA1 nephropathy. What is that, and how do you kind of like treat it? And does his if somebody who was not as physically active, let us say, as again Chris Bumstead, who if he got that or she got that, how would it differ?
Okay, so I'll start off with explaining what IgA nephropathy is. So you have, like similarly how I said that there's a viral response to a lot of antibodies, like autoimmune diseases, right? So in IgA nephropathy, there is there's a streptococcal attack, bacteria, right? The streptococcus bacteria is there.
Okay.
So after that, post streptococcal attack, right? There's a lot of IgA antibodies.
IgA is a protein.
It is a protein, but it's a big protein, you could say. So it stands for immunoglobulin. So those are it's an antibody which it helps in attacking the pathogens. So what happens is this IgA, it starts getting deposited into the kidney. Okay, and over time these the deposition increases and then it damages the kidney tissue. Especially there's a membrane called the basement membrane in the how do you call it, nephrons. A nephron is a unit in a kidney which helps in filtering the urine out.
Okay.
So that has a basement membrane which helps in filtering the the urine from the blood. And so over time this basement membrane gets destroyed, and due to that there is the two main symptoms in IgA nephropathy is hematuria and proteinuria. Hematuria is blood in your urine, right? And proteinuria is protein in your urine. So you know there's a loss of protein.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't lose protein.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So, as you said, how people who don't exercise may get affected with it. There may be a severity in the proteinuria because you're not utilizing the protein, and then it's getting excreted more and more instead of getting into your muscle tissues. Everything is a lot of the tissues in our body is made up of protein, bones, ligaments, not just the muscle.
Cartilage.
Yeah, even your immune system is made up of proteins.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a loss of how do you put it, proteins and blood.
There's a lot of proteins in blood because of IgA1 nephropathy.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a treatment for it, or there is no treatment for it.
Again, it's the same thing. There's you give glucocorticoids, immune suppressants.
Okay,
It's the
same
same.
thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Okay, fine. But it's ironic that in the sense that it's to a lifter to whom protein is a very important macronutrient ends up getting an IgA1 nephropathy that ends up getting this particular disease which leads to a loss of protein through urine.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. Even proteins, they help keeping, the osmotic level balance in your body, which is, the water, is retained. So if you keep losing protein, the first protein that is lost is a protein called albumin. Albumin is, it helps in, how do I put it? Maintains the osmotic ratio. Once that is lost, right, you start getting edema. The water starts, getting filled up in your body.
Okay, I think Bumstead was talking about something of this lines where he said that his knees were feeling very, if I remember correctly, on the YouTube video that he was talking about, that his knees were actually very, I would say, filled with water, or he couldn't even
That's the thing.
walk.
That's the edema. There's facial puffiness, and your knees, they get filled with water. Yeah.
They get filled with water. Right. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, he braved all of it and kind of won the Mr. Olympia 5 times. So more power to him.
5 times.
I think 5 times. Yeah, 4 times or 5 times. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess. I mean, it's an inspiring story for us to kind of go out there and do something. I guess. So, which brings me to another small, I would say, topic here that I think we could take up for another session, for another podcast session, which is about how IgA is a protein. Right, we will very soon be talking about the connection between metabolic syndrome and autoimmune disease, and we did a complete podcast on metabolic syndrome and syndrome X as it is called. I'll link it down below. Please have a look. And there's another protein there called GLUT3, right? So as a lifter or as a person who started going to the gym and really wanted to build muscle, and I learned that while protein is really important for you, but it turns out proteins aren't just for muscle. You dig deeper and you realize that proteins are pretty much like the building blocks of everything in your body. There's a protein to convert glucose into energy. There's a protein to do something else. There's a protein for like I guess brain function. And proteins are pretty much responsible for all your
everything.
For your immune system. And I also learned to a certain extent that somehow these proteins fold. Right, they fold into like certain configurations. And if they don't fold correctly, right, that leads to diseases. Actually. Disease also is
especially you know the disease Alzheimer's, right?
Right.
So what happens is Alzheimer's is there's a malfunction in the protein folding. There's a lot of protein amyloid. There's a protein called amyloid. So there's a lot of deposition in the brain. Slowly the tissue gets your original the neurons, they get degenerated, and then the space starts getting filled with amyloid proteins over time. Those are defective proteins.
That's a very good podcast where we can actually do, and let me know in the comments below if you want us to deep dive into this about, I guess, protein misfolding, if I may put it that way, and disease, and the connection between like even chronic diseases and protein misfolding, and how you kind of like, and its relationship to, let's say, drug therapy, right? Like I guess even if you want to develop a drug, you target a particular protein in order to develop it. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Right. So let us know in the comments section down below if you want us to have a podcast on that. We'll go really deep dive. We'll dive deep into that and let you guys know everything about it. It's a very interesting topic because there's some really interesting mathematics also in protein folding, understanding how proteins fold, because it's like a one-dimensional sequence that folds into itself and becomes a three-dimensional structure. And it also evolves over time, so proteins can be modeled as four-dimensional objects, is some papers that I've essentially read. So that's a very interesting topic that we would love to explore. Let us know in the comment section down below. Now coming to the Dr. Wall's approach, or rather the connection between, I read an article on metabolic syndrome and its connection to autoimmune disease, and you were talking about rheumatoid arthritis. So could you talk about rheumatoid arthritis a bit and how these two things connect together, like metabolic syndrome and autoimmunity? Is there any connection? Because what I've heard is that there's some connection through inflammation. So please educate us on that.
So what happens in rheumatoid arthritis is that you have a joint, okay? So in that joint, there's this synovial membrane which starts producing, synovial fluid. Because, if two cartilages keep rubbing onto each other for, more time, they get degenerated. That's the reason pain and, problem in mobility comes. But the synovial fluid is like a lubricant. So it helps in, easy movement of your joints. So what happens in rheumatoid arthritis is that there's an antibody called CCP, stands for cyclic citrullinated peptide, that affects the synovial membrane, which helps in producing the synovial fluid. And over time, this starts getting inflamed. Okay, and over time, the fluid starts going out of the synovial membrane, which causes swelling. Okay. And over time, there's a loss of mobility. Okay, that's the thing. Usually, this is also seen in women a lot.
Rheumatoid arthritis is seen a lot.
And so there's a usually there's a risk of as I said, a race. There's not a specific race, but in this, there's a risk in Native Americans, not Red Indians, not us. Okay, and women more.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I said, there's a antigen called HLA, human leukocyte antigen. So what happens is, in tissue matching, when you do organ transplant, right? People don't just see the blood group; they even see these antigens called HLA. Okay, this stands for human leukocyte antigen.
Okay.
And so every tissue has a specific HLA.
Okay.
So what happens is, when you have a defective HLA or a wrong HLA, that's when the immune system attacks.
Right.
So in this, the HLA is called DRB1, if I recall correctly. So this is affected in that, which causes, articular is, joints, right?
Okay.
Articular means joint. So there's an articular manifestation, which is this, joints getting affected. And there's also extra articular manifestation. Your eyes may get affected.
Right.
Different part of tissues may get affected. Inflammation may spread all over the body, which, is a, risk factor for metabolic syndrome, because inflammation is a leading cause.
Okay.
For insulin sensitivity, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So researchers, it shows that, there's an increased risk of insulin resistance in people who have rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay. So what I've kind of like understood in this discussion essentially is that there's Dr. Walls. Her name is Terry Walls. She's I think I'll link up the university where she's essentially studying. She's a teaching doctor, and she had multiple sclerosis, right, which is a neurodegenerative disorder. If I'm not mistaken, it affects the nerves.
Yeah, every single nerve in your body can be affected. That's the reason it's called multiple sclerosis.
Multiple sclerosis, right? So it is actually, she kind of, it's a very painful condition as well. And then she started to kind of like, take some just, pill or something that people kind of suggested to her, and it wasn't really working. And she started to dig deep, and because she was a doctor, she could like, understand the literature, understand what was actually going on, right? And wanted to make life better for her, and understood that it has something to do with mitochondria. So the energy, the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that we know about I know at least about what mitochondria is. It is that mitochondria start to act funny because of this, and she started adding a lot of like diet, like fruits and vegetables, a lot of fruits and vegetables into her diet, and she could and she completely cut out artificial sweeteners and sugar from her diet, processed sugars and all, and she was in fact on a wheelchair and could not walk for 4 years, and within no time she started walking. She started walking and started even lifting weights, and her physical therapist was actually stunned. Her colleagues, everybody was completely stunned, and it's called the Dr. Wall's protocol. I'll link that down below as well. Please have a look. She has a YouTube video as well where she talks about how she beat MS, multiple sclerosis, with diet, and that became what is known as the Wall's protocol. And right now she's kind of doing a lot of research on how diet and or these autoimmune conditions and multiple sclerosis kind of come into the picture. And excess sugar in the body, turns out, leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, and that is somehow connected to the immune system dysregulating itself, or attacking its own body and thinking that it's an invasive mechanism. So that's kind of like how insulin resistance kind of and autoimmune diseases kind of feed off of each other. As you were saying, SLE, right? SLE is the driver for insulin resistance. So they're like the best of friends, maybe. One will, if one comes, it tags the other along, says you come. So there's a lot of research being done to kind of figure out how these two are connected. And the fact that she could actually beat multiple sclerosis through functional medicine, because she studied functional medicine and its relation to neurodegenerative disease, and it's like a living example of how like food is medicine, if I could put it that way. Like food literally can be used as medicine. It's boring because you'll have to eat like a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? But it can be used as medicine to really help your body improve and go from a wheelchair to lifting weights.
And cycling, I think, as you said,
I think she used to cycle as well. She used to cycle as well. She's got like lots of stuff up on YouTube, and there's a whole Wall's protocol which you can kind of look at. I'll link up those things down below for you guys to have a look at. So now that we've kind of like come to all of this, how does inflammation, which seems to be the connection between metabolic disorders and autoimmune disease, how does that inflammation reduce through exercise? Like what kind of exercise leads to, how does exercise actually reduce or produce an anti-inflammatory effect?
Okay, so the thing is, exercise, either resistance training or you mainly aerobic exercises, right? It's how do you put it, catabolic process. So the waste products are and energy is gone, energy is utilized, and all the waste products are removed. Catabolic means there's a destructive process. So the bad, everything that is bad is going on. Destructive, not necessarily the good part of you, but the dysfunctional part is the first thing that goes away. And especially, as I think we've discussed in the previous video, exercise, what happens is the insulin, because the body is utilizing the sugar, okay, so the body needs more sugar. That's the reason insulin sensitivity comes and the resistance goes away. So now your body actually needs the glucose.
Okay. So what I've also heard is that it releases something called myokines, right? Which are like anti-inflammatory agents that reduce inflammation in your body. Exercise releases these proteins again. Proteins. Cytokines are like
in the immune system.
Cytokines are in the immune system. So exercising produces myokines, which lead to an anti-inflammatory effect in your body. They reduce inflammation.
Yes. True.
Is what I've actually heard. Like, do myokines reduce like maybe C-reactive protein, or no? That's completely different.
No, that's different. C-reactive protein is then again it's a completely different topic. Usually, it's C-reactive protein increases in any infection or inflammation.
Okay. So this leads me to something that a lot of people actually suffer from, and a lot of people have come up with companies to kind of solve this as well. I don't know, but it's called alopecia areata. Right.
In that, a spot of, there's patches of baldness in there's not, complete baldness like we see, but there's small patches of baldness.
Okay, alopecia areata is also something that happens because of autoimmune conditions, do we know which antibody is responsible for it?
Usually there's, high levels of anti-nuclear antibodies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I said, the specific antibodies for specific diseases, right? Autoimmune diseases. In this case, usually there's a high level of auto ANA or anti-nuclear antibodies.
ANA.
Yeah.
Okay, so that might be kind of like responsible. But in
Yeah.
all autoimmune diseases, we've never classified things as this antibody is responsible for this autoimmune disease. That level of knowledge is still, I think.
There is, for example, I said rheumatoid arthritis, anti-CCP.
Okay.
Right. And in SLE, there's another antibody called anti-Smith.
Okay. Okay.
So like that, not every disease, but yeah, a lot of them.
A lot of them we
The main
know
ones have
we
been,
know
yeah.
the culprit that is
Yeah.
causing the problem. The
yeah.
antibody that is causing the problem.
Yeah.
And if drugs are developed for it, it would generally be developed for that particular for
exactly.
that antibody.
Yeah.
Okay. Is an antibody like a protein?
It is a protein, yeah.
It is a protein, yes. Protein supremacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Protein for muscles, protein for disease,
everything, yeah.
protein for everything.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, protein. I've also heard some video where proteins are being developed to kind of decompose plastic.
Oh wow.
For materials, because material is also made with protein or something. We can do a whole series on proteins, man. We should
we should.
We should do a series on protein, in fact. So we've actually spoken about metabolic syndrome in our last episode. We've spoken about autoimmune diseases. We've touched upon the various causes of it and about the fact that inflammation seems to be the connection between syndrome X and autoimmune diseases. And then we have also figured out how inflammation can be reduced through exercise. But at the same time, autoimmune conditions do have a genetic component which can't be reduced, with exercise. Next time, let's actually figure out what in fact is all of the various biomarkers that are present in the human body which have an actionable effect when it comes to exercise, right?
Okay,
so what are all the biomarkers? We'll come up with them. We will see how we can essentially which are important for longevity, which are important for good health, and which have actionable insights can be taken on these biomarkers with regards to right nutrition, and right training, right? So the right lifestyle interventions, i.e. they have actionable lifestyle interventions which can reduce these or increase this or get them into the optimal range, so that you can be fit from the inside out, right? How about we do that next time?
Yeah, sure. The thing is, in many diseases, exercise or diet can only affect so much.
Absolutely.
But in rheumatoid arthritis too, there's an acute phase and there's a latent phase. Acute phase is there's a sudden increase in inflammation and then over time so in the latent phase, where there is decreased pain and inflammation, exercise and maintaining mobility is the most important thing, because over time if you don't exercise properly, right, there's loss of mobility, which is a bad thing. And another disease, I think we haven't discussed about it, ankylosing spondylitis.
Okay. It sounds complicated.
Yeah. So ankylosing means, how do I put it? Bridges. So spondylitis, the different bones in our body, rib cage and the vertebra. What happens in this disease is that they start fusing together over time. Okay, there's the HLA in this is called B27, and the antibodies start attacking your the bony joints, especially the rib cage and the spinal vertebra. So what happens in that is you start losing your mobility completely.
This happens in the back or this happens in lower back?
Lower back.
Lower back.
And the rib cage.
Okay.
So that you're not even able to breathe properly, severe cases. Because the
is
rib
it
cage,
painful? Is it a pain?
It's not pain, it's restrictive.
It's restrictive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stiffness. So that's the thing. And in this disease, more than drugs or lifestyle, exercise is the most important thing. You need to have mobility at all times.
Okay.
If you don't, they start fusing, and then once it's too late, yeah.
Ouch. Okay, so if you keep exercising, the chance of it fusing basically reduces
a lot. Yeah.
Okay. We will stop recording, at that interesting little observation that exercise is very good for you, which we all know, but we don't do. So please get out there and start lifting, start working out. And we'll come back next time with the right biomarkers that improve your longevity and what kind of exercises that you have to perform and the nutrition information that you can get in order to optimize these biomarkers. Please subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, and lift. Go to the gym. Thanks, man.